see there's something called forms. And if you click on that, there's a whole lot of different, this is a way that you can do a questionnaire, a quiz, anything like that. You can see how much I use it. Look at all my forms that I've done with different people. For all my Lucy. And then what you can do, if you want to learn how to use these Google Forms, you just type how to use Google Form for a quiz. Okay. And you'll see straight away basics of creating a quiz in Google Forms. So, this is what I love about the internet. Somebody's already made a video to tell you how to use Google Forms to make a quiz. So I'm not going to waste time telling you how to do that, because there's already a movie out there. Okay. But I just want to encourage you, there is so much free technology out there. And Google Forms is one of those. And what is helpful about that is that you can just, if you've got a WhatsApp group with your learners, you can send them the address of this form on the WhatsApp group, and they will then click on that and they will see a quiz. And the quiz will tell them straight away how they are doing. So they try and answer. If it's wrong, the quiz will say, you decide how to do this, but the quiz could say, not quite right this time, try again, or you can give them feedback as they go through the quiz. So that might be something that some of you want to investigate this week, is how to create those quizzes, because then you don't have to mark. I mean, some things you'll need to mark when it comes to calculations, but if you want to just quickly check, and also you as the teacher, you can see how all your learners are performing. Let me show you. It gives you a graph. In fact, this week maybe I'll work with some of you who are interested in Google Forms. I'll work with you. But when you're using Google Forms, it gives you a graph. I'm just going to show you something. So this could be your form. You ask all sorts of questions. This was more just a survey. You ask all sorts of questions, whatever questions you want to. They fill it in, and then here you can see the answers that the learners have filled in. And it tells you it gives you graphs, how they did. This will say how many of them got it right, how many of them got it wrong. This does it for free for you. It gives you graphs of how your learners have done. You see how powerful technology is? And it's for free, it's out there. So maybe this could have been a question that you can use past years' papers, you can use the multiple choice questions. You can put them in a quiz. And then this might say to you, okay, so 93.8% of your learners maybe got it wrong. Straight away you know, okay, I must target this area. But you don't have to mark, this is marking it for you. So this is just to give you an idea of how you can use technology, and if some of you are interested, we can explore this more. But there is a video here, the basics of creating a quiz in Google Forms. So I just wanted to show you that one idea there is that you can use something like that, have quizzes, and it's helpful to be able to give your learners quizzes in between things that just tells you how they're doing, gives you immediate feedback. You know about this WhatsApp discussion groups, and but another way you can use WhatsApp. What I've found, I learned much more science when I started teaching it than when I was just listening. I've learned much more science doing these kind of workshops than learned from doing my master's and PhD. Because when you have to think about how will I explain this, then you really think about it in depth. And so it might be something that you could encourage your learners to do, is trying to come up with maybe a 1 minute teaching themselves on something, on some concept or something that they film, and then they can share it with you, and if it's correct, they can share it with each other. But that gets them more actively involved. Otherwise, WhatsApp can be very passive for the learners. You telling them, but if you get them to start explaining to each other and sending out videos, then I think you might get a little bit more interest from them in the WhatsApp group. So that's just an idea of how to use those WhatsApp groups. And so as we were saying, YouTube, it's just full of videos. But just watch them first, because sometimes it's someone with a very strange accent. I don't know if you've seen some of those. And then it's very difficult to follow. Sometimes different countries use different conventions in science, and then that might confuse learners. So just watch for that sort of thing. Try and find something that is very appropriate. And make sure that they're short. So I know some of those mindset learn, they can go to like half an hour, 45 minutes. You don't want the just to put a video and say to your learners, watch that now, I'm going to do my social media today. And make sure that you know why you're using that video. What is the point that you want to illustrate? And just to, so here are a few ideas of why you would use videos in your lesson. Is to demonstrate an experiment that you don't have equipment for. And this is just an example. I'll let it play. It's just a very clear, there's not even any talking or anything, but it's just a very clear demonstration of total internal reflection. And you could even be talking as the video is going and saying things like, can you see that it's going from a more dense to a less dense medium, it's better away from the normal. Oh, okay. All This is the problem with using technology. It depends on power. Huh? No. There's another set of videos called Khan Academy. Khan Academy.
They tend to be a bit long in a way, but the bits and pieces of it, they're quite nice. Right?
Yeah.
There's also slight language problem there because the accent of the person of using them is, you've got to listen very carefully. K-H-A-N. K-H-A-N. It's an Indian one. There's also lots of them.
The reason why I like this video is that it just shows very clearly the point at which you get the critical angle. Where this goes, if you play here, then you can start seeing that line just disappears. See if we can, that's the critical angle. not the light. And then beyond that, you can see its total internal reflection. And so it's just very helpful to have a very clear video. It doesn't do anything fancy, but it helps you to explain to your learners exactly that terminology, because learners get very confused about those terms, critical angle or reflection. So that's one example. I'll move on to the next. You can also do film yourself doing an experiment, and that's the lovely thing also. So this is from 2019, the last time we had a workshop, and this was just to when doing titrations. So just to show how you. See Miss Majola is in the background. That was just a very short video. But what you can do is if you know you struggle to get hold of equipment or chemicals at your school or something, the laboratory here is available for you. The technicians can bring you whatever equipment you want. So if you want to put together some experiment and film it for your learners, and especially if you've got things like color changes or that kind of thing that you really want to show, then you can film that and you can include that in your lesson. So that's another way that you can use videos. And then you can also use videos. There's some really good videos for explaining something quite abstract. So I'll show one here. Now, unfortunately, I don't know if there's a big speaker here. I see he's got a... But I just want to show you an example of this kind of video. Next to a sound bar or something. Anyway, we'll see if there's enough sound. We don't have sound. There's an explanation that goes with this. But you see, there's no way that you can get your learners to see what's happening with the atoms at the different anode and the cathode. And this video explains it very nicely. I don't know how to get the sound working there.
Toward the external circuit. They travel through the wire and flow into the cathode, the site of reduction. When a I'll
start it again because it's just a very helpful explanation of...
Let's zoom into the atomic scale and see how this cell operates. Here, at the anode, the site of oxidation, zinc atoms in the metal bar are in contact with the surrounding electrolyte solution. And becomes a zinc ion, which diffuses into the solution. The electrons given up enter the bar and join the flow of electrons up toward the external circuit. They travel through the wire and flow into the cathode, the site of reduction. When a copper-2 ion in the cathode solution makes contact with the copper electrode, it gains 2 electrons and is reduced to a copper atom, which deposits on the bar. Therefore, as the cell runs, the zinc anode becomes lighter and the copper cathode heavier. Now let's close in to see the role of the salt bridge. The non-reactive sodium and nitrate ions of the salt bridge prevent the buildup of charge that would occur as zinc ions enter the anode solution and copper-2 ions leave the cathode solution. Such a charge buildup would halt cell operation. In the anode compartment, nitrate ions leave the salt bridge to balance the gain of positive charge as zinc ions enter the solution. Some zinc ions also enter the salt bridge. In the cathode compartment, sodium ions leave the salt bridge and nitrate ions enter it to balance the loss of positive charge as copper-2 ions leave the solution and are reduced at the cathode.
So that's just a really nice example of something where a video explains something that learners find really difficult because it's abstract. But because the graphics are done very well, it actually helps them to see what's happening in one of these cells. So that's an example. And then this is just, sometimes a video can bring excitement to a lesson, and I've got a lovely example here. This example of metals reacting with water.
From the house.
So that's just an example of a fun video that you can show, but it does illustrate something that you can't always show because it's a bit unsafe to do it. There was a story a friend of mine tells. I think she went to Carter High School, and the teacher threw some sodium into the swimming pool, and it caused a crack in the pool. It's a bit dangerous to do this yourself, so then you can also use this videos off the internet for that kind of thing. Now I just want to show you YouTube videos. They try and make it difficult for you to download them, but you can. And I found a site, this site that I've written over here. If you want to take down this address, this should all be on one line here. But this site allows you to download YouTube videos. And when you click the download button, it will save as an MP4 file, which is a very common file. Because otherwise some days, you know, if there's load shedding, the network might be down, or you don't want your whole lesson to be dependent on connection. So it's just helpful to be able to download these videos. And then it will be downloaded into your downloads folder. But during this week, I'm going to be around. I can come and show you how to do all of this as well. And again, the important thing if you're using videos is to think about why you're using it. what is the teaching value, the learning value of using technology? But just all the time when you're using technology, think about what you're wanting to achieve. This is just to show you, so this is when you put in that address, it comes up with this kind of page, and then you put in the YouTube address here that you want to download, and then you click at the bottom, you say download, and it will download it into your downloads folder. Okay. But we can practice that during this week to make sure you know how to do that. And just a few warnings with using technology. A slide like this is very unhelpful. I can see some of your faces. So just be careful. The nice thing with PowerPoint slides is it doesn't cost you anything to rather take this and put it over 6 slides. You're not printing it out or anything. You don't have to save anything. So just don't put too much on one slide. Just think about, how your slides will be readable and that kind of thing. Also, like diagrams like this that are too confusing, be careful of that. You want your slides to be very clear and make the point, and then be careful to okay, some people love to use all these like special features, but it's distracting. So it's not always helpful. Sometimes if you want to wake up and not too often. Avoid using long, boring videos with funny accents, and then don't use technology just because you have the equipment or the programs. Make sure you have a clear learning purpose in mind. Just always think about why you're using it. But I think where COVID has shifted, there's so much more awareness of technology and using technology in education. And so I think we're moving into an era now where we're going to be using technology a lot more. And so that's why we're excited about this week, for you to learn yourselves how to use this in your teaching, and think carefully about how to go about that, and then come up with some lessons that you can share with one another. I think it's a very exciting thing to explore. Mike, I don't know if you want to say something before I kind of talk to them about what they'll be doing this week. Okay. So what you're going to do during this week is you're going to work in groups of 4 or 5, right about that, and then choose some topic from the curriculum. I think Mr. Bennett's got the topics.
This topic
for this next term, yeah. So you can choose a topic from that list, and then design a lesson, and using technology in some way. But think carefully about why you're using technology, and discuss how it's going to help you with getting to what you want to teach. And then on Thursday, we're going to take some time for each group to present their lesson to everybody else, so that we can learn from each other. And as part of your presentation, we want you to explain your choice of technology, of why you think it is a good idea to use technology in that way for that lesson. Okay. So that's where we're going this week, but I've given you a few ideas of possible ways of using technology. That voice is already starting to give up. And I know there's some others who will do that.
okay. Just in terms of just talking that through, it's when I talk technology, what is it that is technology? What is that for you? Is it the computer. What is it? Okay, what is technology? And I look upon it as something that you have developed or used that enhances the way that you're going to get some message across. Okay, so for me, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you might put through electronically. It doesn't have to necessarily be like that. But it's something that you use which enhances the way that you're going to bring up some particular comment, rather than just writing on the board or whatever kind of thing, just because you think that's the right thing to do. Okay. So what we need to look at is ways when you develop a lesson or a group of lessons. And for me, a lesson is something that goes not for one period. A lesson is something that continues when you've actually done, let's say, something to do with electromagnetism. It's the concept of electromagnetism, it's the lesson of it, and it might take you a lot of periods to do it. So when you develop that, and you need to have where do you go to for it, and what do you use for it? That you have somewhere, it's like a kind of a teacher note, let's call it that. Okay, so that when you come to it next year, or somebody might look at it and perhaps want to use it, they know, and you know, what you actually need for it, what you need to collect for it. Okay, because one of the things about science teaching for me is that it's not that easy just to sort of pitch into the room. Okay, there's some kind of a preparation. If you're going to teaching science, there's going to be something that you're going to be using. Okay, whatever that is, you need to have a record of that kind of a thing that you come for. So, unfortunately, one thing that I planned for this afternoon, that Mr. Ntuli has had an emergency for today, and he was going to do a demonstration, a lesson. Okay, but we do have one, and if you would do yours, please. Okay, this afternoon, and the idea of it is that you can see how somebody uses something in the teaching. Okay, Mr. Malab is one correspondent. I had planned that the lessons all followed in the same theme, and that they were different approaches. But it's not going to work that way. But what's going to happen is that perhaps some of you might pick up what might happen, and then tomorrow morning we're going to have a Hilton College teacher, and he's going to use the same sort of concept that Spar's going to be using, topic, but he's going to use what he is able to use at Hilton College. Okay? And the way that he conducts that lesson, or those lessons. And I think it's important, let's put it this way, when I started with Vula, I used to have a kind of a problem in bringing children here. And the problem that I had was because I felt that you were bringing people to something that was beyond them. And I realized very soon that that's actually quite a good idea to bring them here. Because there's something to work towards. There's something to see beyond. And the same thing, there are none of you who have a room like this, and next door a lab that you can just move in and out of, and nobody else is in there. It's yours. Okay. You probably do. Okay? But it's the same room. But it's certainly not all like this, I don't think. That kind of thing, that you have a smart board and you can go and stand over there and teach and fiddle around with this, it all happens in here. Okay? But it's something that you can see which is possible. And I think that's important, that you can see what is, you can go towards. And there are some of you here who would go that way, who would get pretty close to it. Okay? And would want to do that. Right? Unfortunately, what happened to Rebecca? what they've got at Escort High is it's about this size, as wide as this desk, but it's a screen. It's like a flat screen, but it's like a television in a way, and you can put your computer attached to it and all this, and it's the same as what we're doing here. And he's got it in his room. It's on wheels. You can wheel it around. Okay. I don't know how they got it, but they got it. Okay? But it's something that is available in the market. And he uses it a lot, I know. Okay? Have you seen it? You've seen it, it's great, no? It's really great. You can pay your lessons, put them on the memory, put it on your computer and just take it up and off you go. And it's like a smart board, which you can then play on it, okay? Yeah, it's a touch screen. And there's that kind of thing to go towards. And those are things which you can aspire to, but you can get ideas from having seen things like that. I can do that, but I can do it this way. Because that's the creativity of it. And when you see lessons that are prepared for you, I wouldn't want to use them. And why I wouldn't want to use them is because I didn't do that. And so you need to be careful when you take a prepared lesson, whether it's even from something here, that you must adapt it for your use.
Yeah.
Because when you go through this, you need to know what's going on. You can't just sort of take some lesson and then sort of switch on and just sort of, then somebody asks you a question about it and you actually don't know how to answer it because you didn't do that. You have to be careful that you make it your own. So that's what we need to work through. The material is all there. Make it your own in the way that you want to use it and knowing who you're using it for. You each know your classes and you know what they are able to do and what they can't do and which class you can use it for. And when you go from year to year or class to class, how you change it, how you can change it. And it's pretty simple to do, isn't it? This is just with a click of a button. Okay? And you can change it and you just save that and you save this. You've got it. So one needs to look at those kind of ways. Right? So be careful of them. Be careful of having something like that. And I'm not dismayed that this is a distraction for what I'm doing. Okay? So that what's on the screen is what I'm talking about. Okay, because there are going to be guys in this class reading that. That has to be. They'd be silly if you don't. Even if there was a picture there, it'd be worse. So that has to be either what you talk about or nothing.
Yeah.
And so when you have something up on the screen, it's what you're going to use then.
Yeah.
Then you switch it off, or switch this thing off. Okay. You can keep that on all the time on your computer or whatever, but just have a nice way of doing that, because you'll lose it if you don't. Okay? You'll lose the impact of it. It's important that that comes through in that kind of a way. Okay. We were talking this morning about COVID. It's come up in our time here. And one of the big things about COVID, or during the time of COVID, was that things would be different when COVID was finished. Or is it different? No, it's not. And that's the tragedy. That it's not different. Okay? But technology has moved, but we're still doing it the same way. And there's this saying that if you keep doing this thing in the same way all the time, you will keep getting the same result. You'll be doing the same thing, you'll be getting the same result. Okay? does it frustrate you that the pressures that's put on you to get a good exam result at the end of grade 12, forget about any other grade, it's only grade 12, okay? That has to frustrate you. It would frustrate me. Because that's what seems to matter. Why do you teach? Why do you teach? Is that what you're teaching for? There's three things that I always work with when I was teaching. I want children to be able to cope. I want them to be able to communicate. I want them to be able to be creative. And your subject, the way that you teach your subject, is how you can develop that. They're not all going to do science. Okay? Some of them are, some aren't. Some are just doing it because that's the subject they have to do. Okay? And they just need a pass for it. And that's, you accept that. Okay? But you want them to be able to cope, to communicate, and to be creative. Everybody. Okay? So that when they get out into the world, they can cope, they can communicate, and they can be creative. The thing you have to be creative in the world in which we go to do that. You have to. Okay? So it's those kind of things. And then with technology and with what has been available, and I've spoken to some university students, and I have 2 grandchildren who have online lessons at university, and also some lessons where they are face-to-face. Okay? So sometimes they go online for lectures, and sometimes they have to go in for lectures. Okay? Some of their tutorial work is online, some of it isn't. Okay? Some of their practical work is sort of an online type thing, and some they have to go in for. And I hear from also in what's going around in this country, there seems to be quite a lot of online lectures and so on. And while that is okay, and what's happening, one has to be very careful because there's all this kind of learning, this online learning and this what I call digital, technological learning. One has to be very careful that one doesn't sit into that. And that's the only thing to do. You have to communicate with other people. You have to interface. There is that need to do that. We need to meet. Okay? You need to meet, talk about what you do, how you use it, and so on. And that's what we're trying to do here. Okay? That don't, that the WhatsApp time, you're not going to go, basically that wasn't going to work. Okay? And I don't know how well it works for students now at university in terms of online. I think that there have to be a lot of guys who really battle with it because they can't talk to anybody about it. Okay? And I think that's important. Okay? So as we go along this few days, if we can talk about it, okay? Can talk about what we use, how we use it, what the technology is available, try all these things out, see what they are, and then use them. And I know that there are people here who feel they can't go into a lesson now unless they are with it. Okay, they can't go back to that chalk and talk. They can't do it, can you? No. You have to do it. And you get to the stage where that's the way to go. Okay? And you'll find, to start off, it's hard work because it's the preparation that you have to go through to get it all onto it. But once you've got it there, it's easy to change it and to add and modify it because it's available for you to do. But you'll find that as soon as when you get up and it's on there, things that you were taking a lesson over, or even more than a lesson, you're suddenly taking less time on it, and you've got more time for consolidation. I don't know how you, at the moment, manage to do consolidation. When I look at an ATP, I just don't think it. I don't know how you do it. Okay? Okay. You know, you say, come here at 7 o'clock, come here at 8. It's hell, isn't it? Yeah, people are people. And they're human beings, you know, they're social birds. You can't just, there's a limit. But it's that, okay. So that's, I want to say, so if we can move into that direction, okay, and start thinking along those lines. Okay. Okay. So it's getting, even though things aren't changing, you can change them for yourself. And I think that's important. There's no reason that you have to keep going along like this. You know, some of you still got quite a few years to get through before you can sort of sit back and do nothing, okay? Make it worthwhile, yeah. And make what you do enjoyable, far more enjoyable than you do are, okay? And you'll find that some of you guys have got 50, 60 kids in the class. It just makes a difference. This makes a difference. It really makes a
It
difference.
also keeps you growing as
It
a
does.
lifelong learner. You're learning new things and it makes it more interesting for you than doing the same old thing every day.
And as you said, as you start doing it, you start to realize that understanding the subject. Because that's something you see. Why is that like that? Okay? And you know that you have to explain that, and you just get an answer to it. Okay.
Yeah.
So those kind of thoughts, I'm going to leave with you. Should we just move it through there? Okay. Oh.
So should we get off this list of topics and then can you get into groups of 4 or 5 or even 6? I mean, it's up to you. And you're going to be working together for this week. And maybe so in that group, different ones of you might have different tasks to do. But together as a group, you want to come up with this lesson. And as Mike said, not just like a one lesson, but a whole learning experience using technology, and then you'll be presenting that to everybody else.
If you can do more than one, that's fine. Yeah, great.
Yes,
But it's, what I've done is just really to put the topic, the headings really of the topics for grade 10, 11, and 12 for next term.
Sure.
And the idea was that, in fact, you can actually take that away and then use it in front and that was the basic idea of using that. That video that was about the electrochemical cell. That's, you've got it on your computer. And the chemical and the chemistry video.